Hi friends, welcome to today's episode of Entitled People. In today's episode, we are looking at a brother who stole OP's car and learns a very expensive lesson. Also, a Karen who believes that everyone is in her way and decides to pepper spray them, including a heart attack patient. And in the final story, cousins who decide to alienate OP's son because he's adopted and has stolen their money. Stay tuned for the rest of this episode. This story is titled Deadbeat Brother Crashed My Crown Victoria, Gets a Night in Jail He Won't Forget. I, a 21-year-old male, have an older brother, Dave, fake name, that has always been a jerk to me. There's only a 1-year gap between us, but he liked to beat me up when we were kids, and he always acted like anything that was mine was also his, but he was also somewhat the golden child, which made me miserable. So no surprise, I moved out at 18. My uncle is a now retired police officer and he took me in after I left home. He even hooked me up with a decommissioned Crown Vic. I absolutely love that car. I don't know why, but Dave hated the fact that I had that car. He drove 3 bitter cars into the ground while my Crown Vic kept chugging along. Well, after his 3rd bitter finally died when he drove it into a pool, he asked to borrow my car. I had a bad feeling and said I wasn't gonna do that. He called me entitled and said he needed a car to get to work. I told him to take the bus because I know how he drives and my Crown Vic was off limits. My parents called me after that and told me to just lend him my car. I said I won't, no matter what they say. I rely on the car and need it as well since it's my personal transportation. Dave wasn't the only one in the world with a job he needed to get to. My uncle congratulated me for standing up to them and gave me a high five. A few days later, when I got off work, the car wasn't where I parked it. I called my brother's cell, but he didn't pick up. Then I called my parents and asked them if he took my car. They denied it, so I said I was gonna call the cops. And then they admitted he'd borrowed it because he needed it. I told them he better bring it back right now or I'll have to police looking for him. They called me a jerk and then phoned Dave to bring my car back. He showed back up in the parking lot in my car 20 minutes later. I demanded to know how he stole my car and he held up a set of police Crown Vic keys he'd bought online. Some are made universal. I told him if he ever stole my car again, I'd have him arrested. Then he had the audacity to ask for a ride home. I told him he made me wait in the December cold after stealing my car so he could walk. He called me a jackass before I drove away. After that, my uncle installed a tracking device in the car. When Christmas Day came, I was celebrating with family like every year. The roads were cold and icy, so I had to be very careful while driving. By now, you're probably clued in on the title. Yeah, Dave borrowed my car again during the Christmas party. Apparently, he decided he was gonna go pick up a friend and figured I wouldn't notice. But I did when I looked out the front window and saw my car was missing. I pulled up the tracking app and saw he was a few miles away, then called his cell to yell at him. Everyone in the party saw this and asked what was going on. I said Dave stole my car again, and my uncle confirmed it wasn't the first time. Dave told me over the phone to screw off and he'd be back soon. I said he better not have been drinking, but he just hung up on me. Well, while I was watching the tracker app, the dot stopped and didn't move for a while. Soon, we got a panicked call from Dave asking for help. He'd crashed the car because he couldn't handle the icy roads and he wasn't used to a rear-wheel drive vehicle. So we piled into my parents' minivan and followed the tracker. We found Dave by the road and my Crown Vic nose deep in a snow-filled ditch. My uncle was furious as it was formerly a car of his department, and I was mad as hell at Dave for stealing my car again. My parents wanted me to let it go, but I said enough was enough and was gonna call police. Dave made me not to because he really had been drinking before he set off and would get a DUI. I said he was gonna pay me back for my damn car, then or I'd sue him. Well, as luck would have it, police were already aware of the accident and were driving in to check on the scene. Someone else had called them, I guess. My parents tried to say that I was the one driving the car and they were just there to help me. I said that wasn't true, and my uncle backed me up. In fact, one of the cops that was there recognized my uncle and they had a chat. Then they went to Dave and asked to see his license, which I then found out was suspended after he'd crashed his previous car. They then breath tested him. He wound up with cuffs slapped on his wrists while my mother was crying and begging the police not to take him away. But the but the officer just said that she and my dad could get arrested too for lying to police. That shut my parents up. And we got back in the minivan. The Christmas party was ended early, and my parents drove me and my uncle home since he rode with me. They didn't say much to either of us the whole drive, and just sped away as soon as we were out of their van. They nearly slipped off the road themselves doing that. My brother was let out of jail the next day, and he looked so scared that he was practically crying. The cops there had roughed him up a bit while talking about prison and the shit they'd seen go on there. Dave had actually pissed himself during that, and they let him take a shower. That's when my uncle started cracking up and revealed to us that his friends in the department never filed the DUI and just the charge for the suspended license, which was about a $600 fine. My uncle said that he just wanted to teach Dave a lesson, and this would be the one and only time he'd ever get his help. Dave then apologized to me and said he'd pay to have my Crown Vic fixed and would never touch it again. Well, when it got pulled out of the ditch, the front end damage was actually minor. It needs a new front bumper, a headlight, and a grille. The damage was just superficial, thankfully. My parents have pretty much glossed over the whole incident and act like it never happened. Dave gave me the extra Crown Vic keys he'd bought online and said this has taught him a lesson he won't soon forget. This is an interesting lesson. Here I have so many questions for OP. Like, why would they let him get off with just that? Because I can imagine the number of accidents that have happened because of such negligence by people. His brother should have definitely gotten a DUI. I understand it's family and whatnot, but sometimes it's necessary to actually go through the full length of the law to ensure that this doesn't happen again. I really do hope it doesn't happen again. Okay guys, there is an edit though. OP says, okay guys, I'm kinda tired of so many gripping about how my uncle broke the law by keeping my brother's DUI from ever being filed. I did not consent to that. I did not want him to do it, but by the time I found out it was already done. My uncle isn't a bad person. He was actually a great cop that believed in people getting second chances, and he was thanked for that many times. Last year, I saw a random man recognize my uncle and thank him for putting him on the straight and narrow some years ago. My uncle also detests racism, as do I. I won't deny the cover-up of the DUI by the department was wrong, and I have no idea how they did it, but it's already done, and I no longer care about it. My brother willingly paid in full for the repairs of my car and is keeping out of trouble. I know he could have had to kill someone. That much is obvious, but he didn't. My parents should have been arrested for lying to police too, but they weren't. But my father was arrested later anyway because he attacked a man after being called out as a narcissist, and now the situation is what is currently going on. What happened with my brother is basically done now. My father trying to cover a man's face in, I'd say, is far more important at the moment than something that happened weeks ago. I've already had it. All the comments about police corruption, needing to get my hair rekeyed and have the locks changed, or several other measures. I plan to have the locks changed and rekeyed when I can afford it, but I currently cannot afford it. So in the meantime, I'm getting a kill switch and a steering wheel club. And a comment that caught my attention is one that says, your parents are enabling dicks, and your brother is the golden child that can't possibly do anything wrong. I'm glad he got a reality check, but your parents are a lost cause by now. Your uncle sounds great though, and I agree with it. This story is titled, How to Ruin Your Life. So about 10 months ago, a guy goes down outside a strip mall store, has a medical alert bracelet on about a heart condition. Paramedics get called, which arrive quickly, thanks first responders. They showed up in a 4-door pickup with bed shell, all fire engine red, flashing lights and sirens, fire department and paramedics all over the truck. They jump out and start hooking this guy up to blood pressure cuff, sticking the heart monitor pads to him, etc, etc. Karen rolls up behind the paramedics truck and starts screaming the truck cutter off at the intersection, with lights and sirens. Then she demands the paramedic look at her as she melts down while she is starting CPR on the victim. The paramedic is ignoring her entirely and has to get something from the truck. She blocks his way and gets moved aside as he gets to the truck. This is where Karen pulls out a pepper spray, hoses the standing paramedic directly in the face, but she's not done. She sprays the second paramedic on the ground and just for the trifecta, hoses down the heart attack victim, screaming he's too young to have a heart attack. I took it as my cue to remove her pepper spray and hold on to her with others until police arrive. Still others are trying to help with CPR, while some try to wash out the eyes of the paramedics. Police arrive, Karen goes immediately into handcuffs and then attempts to kick police, which results in getting hog-tied and her shirt pulled over her face, at which time she starts screaming rape. And then they kick her. When the police arrest her, she starts with, "Do you know who I am?" Results are 2 counts of aggravated assault with a weapon on paramedics, 2 counts of assault on police, 1 count of aggravated assault with weapon on the heart attack victim who survived, resisting arrest with violence. She's also being sued by the heart attack victim for $10 million, which she apparently has. Her criminal trial is coming up. I bought a new suit for it and my old ass will be there with bells on. Since the entire event is on video from 2 cameras, and who knows how many cell phones, it will be interesting to see what her high-powered legal team is going to cook up, and ultimately, I hope she'll be convicted. She's facing a possible 65 years, but practically will only get about 10 maximum, if any, prison time. As a side note, her husband is a bank vice president and refused to make her bail. It took her 13 days to get her family to bail her out. I'll try to update when the trial happens. Wow, that Karen is crazy. I can't imagine. Well, why would she spray that? I understand maybe she had been about things in her life on that day, but why pepper spray paramedics? They are trying to save a life. I'm sure there's a law against that, and I hope she is tried to the full length of it, because man. Anyway, OP comes back with an update. She says that the only update I have is from a firefighter or an EMT. She apparently made a large donation to the fire department, did rehab, and got off after successfully completing rehab, some kind of trial diversion program. The poster that said she would blame it on drug or alcohol cocktail was seemingly correct. Is this common? I never heard of that before, but then again, I don't know how many people that do crap like this. Wow, so this Karen got off. I hope she never does this again, because I can't imagine how many people this would have affected. And to make it worse, what would have happened to that heart attack victim? And I can't get over the fact that she said that the heart attack victim was too young to have a heart attack. Is there such a thing? It's just such a very outrageous story. Anyway, write down what you think about this Karen and the whole situation. If you have any, put your comment down in the comment section below. I'd be happy to hear about it. This story is titled, "Entitled Relatives Think They Deserve More Than My Adopted Son." To give more context here, I must say that I am an IT engineer from toxic family relationships. I did cut off my father and my uncles and aunts, yet I keep in contact with my cousins and their children, which somehow I treat as mine, as I had none and I am an only child. Therefore is the closest I got. I always prioritize success over relationships, so I'm single, and through the years I felt that my cousins' children weren't mine. Therefore, I wanted to raise one of my own. It took me some time, but finally I adopted an 8-year-old kid, as those usually age out of foster care. I love the experience of raising a kid, yet I have had to deal with some entitledness from my cousins. It turns out that every now and then I usually spend some money traveling with my cousins and their children, yet this year, for obvious reasons, I need to save money in order to get all of the stuff my son would need, and I'm planning on going big, the best of the best I could afford. I just explained this to my cousins and told them this year our trip together will be cancelled. They said nothing, so I thought they understood the whole situation. Anyway, I wanted my kid to socialize with my cousins' children, so I invited them all to a get-together party after about 2 months, when my son felt comfortable enough. And somehow, all of the kids were so mad and refused to play with my kid. He just sat in the corner and tried to not cry, but he did. I just talked to the kids and they said he was not part of the family and they deserve more, as he is adopted and they, as my family, were entitled to the trip to the parks in Florida. I was in shock and asked them where they got that from, and they told me how their parents have told them the reason why I took their trip was my son, who comes from the streets and isn't even family. I was fuming, so I told them all to leave. I had a Zoom meeting with just my cousins who tell me that their children must come first, and I told them they made me realize my son comes first. So I cancelled their college funds, their private school tuitions, and just told them that if my kid is not part of their family, neither am I, and they were cut off. I have been called unreasonable, and I think my son comes first, and I made the right decision. Wow. So adoption doesn't make someone part of the family? Yikes. These cousins just make me take a back. I feel like the toxic family traits that OP started talking about at the beginning of the story are starting to reveal in these cousins. They feel entitled to his money. And just because they had 8 beautiful years where he was able to provide all these things doesn't mean that they're entitled to it forever. The entitlement is appalling. It's funny. And OP's priorities change. I'm guessing that is life, and these people have to accept. Oh God. One of the comments says, you definitely made the right decision. Screw those people. My God, how awful. And one of the things that's most common thread in the comments is asking if the son is okay. I think I would also like to know, is his son okay? Because I am sure as a foster kid, you expect that he's gone through so much rejection to come to this much rejection in this family. That must be very traumatizing to him as well. I hope OP's son is fine. It's a sticky situation, man. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, don't forget to leave them down in the comment section below. Kindly subscribe and like for more videos in the future. We hope to see you more. Thank you and welcome again. Bye.